Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. The All About You podcast is exactly what it sounds like. A podcast dedicated to the interesting, the wonderful and the eclectic world of you. I have created this podcast as a journey of discovery about people for you, the listener. So I'm very happy to be sitting here with my guest today, and I'd like to welcome Scott to the podcast.
Hello everyone, this is my first podcast. I am honoured to be spending this time with you and I'm really looking forward to it actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I do like somebody who hasn't done a podcast before. So we are going to do what I call the 3-question podcast. So I've got 3 random questions. We may not get through them all and we have no idea where this is going to go. Your first question then, Scott. Is there anybody in the public eye, alive or dead, that you admire or you would like to have a chat with?
I actually have a very specific answer for this question, and the answer is Joanna Lumley. I love Joanna Lumley. I feel there are a lot of parts of her personality, her career that I admire. I admire the person she is. For example, she started her career as an actress in the 60s, I believe. I think she first starred on a James Bond film. Through there, she's done various acting. She starred on Coronation Street. She's a massive philanthropist. And now in her latter years, should we say, she has devoted a lot of her life to travel, to understanding different cultures around the world, but also really appreciating them rather than observing them. She always throws herself in completely to her travels, gets immersed in the culture. For me, this is something I greatly admire, and also it's quite aspirational. She has always been the person who I've said, if you could have dinner with someone and speak about anything, who would it be? It would be Joanna Lumley, 100%. She's quite self-depreciating in her humour, like she doesn't take her stardom too seriously, acts and behaves like she is, one of us commoners. And for this, exactly the same. She feels authentic.
I think that's a great answer because I remember Joanna Lumley from Absolutely Fabulous. And she was just absolutely brilliant in that. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't like that programme. Yet she's done some amazing stuff as a serious actress. I remember seeing her in Rebecca. I think she was in Rebecca. I hope that's right. I've got a feeling.
Is this an adaptation from the novel?
Yes. Rebecca is my favourite all-time book.
I love it.
And I don't know how many times I've read that book. I know we are digressing here, but I said we would. A friend of mine was saying, do you read a lot? And I said, I read loads. She said, what's your all-time favourite book? I said, Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. She said, show me the book. And I realised I hadn't got a copy of that book, which is crazy. But she is an incredibly versatile actress, and she's had an incredible career. But her travel documentaries, I think, are first class.
Really insightful.
And I think, as you say, she gets down with the people. She really wants to know. And you get the impression she's done her homework. She's done the reading about the region, the customs and all the rest of it.
She seems to uplift any of the communities that she travels to. She seems to celebrate their identities and cultures. Not in a way that is through a Western eye. She does it wholeheartedly, and for this is one of the reasons why I think there's an authenticity there.
So if you went for dinner with her, what would you ask her?
I think I would keep it simple and say, out of all of the places you've travelled in the world, which corner would you say you've been most drawn to? Which ones do you think have evoked something within yourself? Because sometimes we can visit a country and we'll see a light shine in a different way. She's probably had this experience.
Because wasn't she born in India? Was it India?
Yes.
Because her father was in sort of the military services.
He was stationed, yeah. She was born in India. And actually I seen her live around 5 years ago in Liverpool. when she travelled to England, she travelled via a ship, and she first arrived in Liverpool. So she was like, she said, I'm an honorary Scouser, which, you know, this ticked another box for me. Yes, that was great. But even on stage, the stage presence was like amazing. She was so much energy and life within her. She's truly fantastic.
So was it an audience with Joanna Lumley, or?
Yes, it was an audience with Joanna Lumley, and it was all about her life, her travels, basically this, but it was so fascinating and so eye-opening and inspirational, and she's funny as well, which is amazing.
I mean, the thing about Joanna Lumley, you never see her falling out of a nightclub. She's very rarely...
Only as Patsy.
Well, yeah, as Patsy. You never see her in the press. She's been married to a husband whose name I can't remember for decades, but they're not one of these people on the front of Hello magazine every 5 minutes, which I think in the world of sort of showbiz
it's quite rare.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. Oh, so Joanna Lumley, nice. I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, next question then. If you won the lottery, what would your today look like in 5 years? So if money was no object, how would you be living your life in 5 years?
Well, I'd like to think that I would not be living in England. I'd be leaving for somewhere a little bit warmer, a little bit more relaxed, with an easy way of life. Perhaps Spain, perhaps Italy. I do love the cadence of life along the Mediterranean. I think it's so laid back. There's just a pure relaxedness which I would enjoy. Having said that, I would like to be able to look back at Liverpool and see that I've put money into the infrastructure. I'd love to see my own city being more developed, whether that's transport, education, the town centre. I'd love to be able to give back to the city that raised me, really.
I mean, Liverpool to me, I've never been there, but Liverpool to me just seems to be a very hip happening place. I get the impression there's masses of nightlife, huge investment in sort of hotels and exhibitions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say it's hip hop happening. There's a lot going on. We've got lots of students. There's a massive rise in the amount of student accommodation in the city centre, which is a different topic altogether. Yes, there's a lot going on. This year we hosted Eurovision, which was amazing for the city. The city really came alive, and there was people from all nationalities or from all over the world really mixing in a town that is historically a port town. So all through the ages, Liverpool has had a melting pot of Scandinavian, Chinese, African communities naturally. So it felt right that we were hosting an event for so many different cultures.
And imagine yourself in 5 years' time. What would your daily routine be like? What sort of things would you do in your day?
I'd be jobless, if I won the lottery. But I'd probably spend my time teaching English. Is a great passion of mine, to be able to bestow language to another person who wants to learn would be such a blessing. And to be able to fill my time with having like a one-to-one or maybe a group scenario for teaching would be my ideal, certainly.
Because you're working in sort of education now and student mentoring, so you really wouldn't leave that. You would develop that more because you've got the time and the financial resources to go ahead and do that. That's the impression I get.
Yeah, I think working in education has really opened my eyes to the importance of education and how rewarding it is to be able to gift knowledge to another person. I seen a quote, and I think it might have been by Albert Einstein, but I can't remember. And the quote is that, in essence, it's everything that you have around you, everything that you look at, all the clothes you wear, every piece of material is made or has been made through the accumulation of knowledge through your ancestors. Even plastic bottles, life jackets, things like this. It's everything. The point we are at now is an accumulation of knowledge, So to be able to be a cog in the machine of passing knowledge on it's really rewarding for me personally.
I mean, it's very interesting with education, isn't it? I mean, I know particularly when I was at school and further education, it's like, I cannot wait to leave. And I think as you get older, we then develop an interest in, someone wants to educate themselves in bonsai, somebody wants to educate themselves in steam engines. We then have the opportunity to educate ourselves in things that float our boat. And I think that's when it gets interesting, because at school you're reading things to pass exams and you know, go on to further education and your career. But when you have the opportunity to read the things that you enjoy, I think that is just fascinating. And particularly now with technology, we can have audio books in our ears, we've got Kindles. I've got 200 odd books on my Kindle, and I think that's one of the greatest inventions ever. But this further education of the things that we are interested in.
Absolutely. I think that when self-education really comes alive is when you discover something that you may have put on the side for a while, or you've never really tended to it. When you really get the chance to throw yourself into an interest or a hobby and educate yourself on it, as you said, this is when it comes alive and it develops a form, and you become proud of it in a way.
I mean, I'm a big fan of YouTube, because the amount of education on YouTube by professors doing a lecture on the other side of the world, TED Talks from all around the world, famous chefs showing you how to chop an onion. It's absolutely incredible the amount of free education we can have at our fingertips. It's just incredible.
It's endless, and you can educate yourself up to, just before degree level on YouTube, on free videos about A-levels or GCSEs. The information is there, and as you say, it's free.
And the quality of education, I think, is just fantastic. So Scott, your last question.
Okay.
What movie or show do you keep watching? Is there a film you watch over and over again, or is there a series you've watched all 6 series?
Well, there is a comedy that I do like. It's not on Netflix, but it's a comedy I always go back to. I've watched it since childhood. I tell other people about it as much as I can, and it's I don't know if you'll know it. It's Nighty Night.
No, never heard of Nighty Night.
So it's a comedy from around 2004. There's another series in 2005, I think, by Julia Davis.
That name rings a bell.
Julia Davis, she does a lot of comedies, or did, with Rob Brydon.
Oh, right, yeah.
And people from, like, the League of Gentlemen. This comedy is the darkest humour I have ever seen before. And I watched this comedy when I was in year 4 in school.
Yeah.
Really young, watching this comedy. And it's just absolutely... It's a very niche audience. It's quite offensive at times. But it's one of those I laugh at the thought of some of the lines in there. And it follows the story of a woman whose husband is in hospital with cancer. So he survives. The cancer diminishes, but she tells everyone that he's died. So then it follows her, and she's trying to flirt with the local neighbour, but she's just a really horrendous woman. Really abhorrent, racist, homophobic, sexist. But, I mean, obviously these things alone aren't funny, but for her to write this into a character, this is where the humour comes from. But it's just I feel like because I watched this show when I was so young, it really set the bar for me on comedy. For me now, I think comedy is too sterile. It's not funny anymore. It's so there's so much red tape around comedy now, where this show was so dark and so decrepit when I was younger. It's if something isn't dark humour anymore, I don't want to know.
I mean, this is so funny because there's a few decades between you and me in respect of our ages and probably the TV or watch when we were growing up. I don't find comedy on TV now funny at all. However, when I go back to the TV programmes I watched as a child with my parents, I'm sitting on the sofa now laughing my socks off. And the humour is very, very simple. It's gentle. You know what's going to happen. You know he's going to come in with a wedding cake and trip over and the cake's going... You know that, but you still laugh when it happens.
Yeah.
I don't know, why has there been this big shift? Is it comedy's getting very technical now, and I don't know, that the fun has gone out? I don't know, but I a lot of people say, oh, don't you watch this? And I'm like, no, because I just don't see it's funny. There's nothing worse when someone else thinks a programme is hilarious and you are just, what are they laughing at?
Yeah.
That's just the worst, I think.
I've had this a few times, or if someone says, oh, let's watch this, it's hysterical, and you're sitting there stone-faced. Yeah, I've had this experience. But yeah, I agree. I think comedy now has lost its it's too safe.
Yeah, maybe it is. It's been politically correct and making sure we're not offending anybody. But going back to our first question with Joanna Lumley, I mean, absolutely fabulous, was just great. I mean, June Whitfield playing the mother, the daughter, was just so brilliantly written. I mean, I don't know who did the writing for that, and I don't know if Joanna Lumley and Jennifer Saunders, because Jennifer Saunders wrote a lot with Dawn French and they did stuff together.
More great comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. But the timing and the storylines, it was just absolute genius.
The fashion, the whole aesthetic
it was something
of the show.
For everybody, wasn't there? As you say, for us girls, oh my God, what is Patsy wearing now? And what club is she falling out of?
Yeah.
And I don't know, when was that around, that series?
Late 80s, early 90s.
And the film, I think they did two films? One film?
Yeah, which it weren't too favourable, to be honest. Have you seen the film?
I did see the film, and the problem I was a huge fan of Sex and the City. Went to see the first film, absolutely fantastic. The second one, and sometimes I think, like, a TV series has been so successful and it's got its own sort of chemical formula. They make a film, if it works, great, but then I think, is it a good idea to make that film number two? And particularly with Sex and the City, the writing was fantastic, and the first film, great, second one, and I'm not even sure if they made a third one or not.
I'm not sure.
But I'm very hesitant when a brilliant TV series transitions into a film. I think Downton Abbey, they've got it. I think that was absolutely brilliant. I guess it's down to the writing and the actors, but yeah, I'm a bit cautious of a great TV programme translating into a film, because I think it's very different. Sitting in your lounge with your family in your pyjamas watching something, but then going to a cinema with surround sound doesn't always work. No,
it doesn't always translate, and the way it's shot and the length, because sometimes with sitcom comedies, you want it to be over in half an hour, you want them to wrap the story up in half an hour. So when that ekes out into a film, which normally has a lot more money thrown into it, it loses its raw value of the original show, I think. And similar to that, I think a lot of TV shows, and I think especially American ones, run the risk of extending too far. They should have stopped on the third series, but they've travelled to 11, just to try and milk the cow as much as they can.
I mean, I love that expression, by the way, but I think that is so true with Netflix, isn't it? They make a series, it was successful, we'll make season 2, season 3, and anything that's got, all those... I think, I don't want to spend my life watching TV. No. And I must admit, I'm watching less and less and less TV now. I want to sit down, watch a programme when it's convenient for me, whether it's half an hour or an hour, and it's like, okay, I've watched it, I'm done. I think the more TV that comes available with things like Netflix, the more I'm stepping away.
Yeah. When you're faced with a massive amount of options, you can become paralysed by it, and
Yeah,
you say,
I definitely get that.
Sometimes I'll spend more time flicking through the shows than watching one.
Yeah. I think this is it. And when you talk to other people about Netflix, a lot of them are saying, oh, you know, I watched the first episode, then it goes on to... Well, I thought, oh, okay, I watched the second one. The next minute, they've watched 4 hours of TV. It's 2:30 in the morning, and they're up at 6.
Yeah.
It's like a TARDIS that draws you in with something sweet smelling, and you can't get out.
Yeah. Well, if the TV show ends on a cliffhanger, you've got to want to stay there. Where with a 3-hour film, you have one cliffhanger at the end, or you know, it follows the plot. But when it's half an hour cliffhanger, clock, you know, so on. This is one more.
Giving you 3 questions. Give me a question.
Well, actually, the first question that you asked me, I'll spin it differently. Actually, if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive,
right,
who would it be?
Can I only have one person?
You can have...
So I've got a bit of a wish list.
Okay, well, let's say you can have starters with one person, the main meal with another, and then dessert with one more.
Do you know, I'm going to steal that because that is such a brilliant question. Okay, who would I want to have my starter with? I would very much like to have probably the main course with Stephen Fry, because where do you start with Stephen Fry? He is just an all-round genius. I think him doing QI, travel programmes, and I did find, and I think it's still on YouTube, he did a YouTube documentary about him suffering with bipolar.
Ah, okay.
He is bipolar. He was saying he was starring in a show in London, wasn't feeling particularly great, ended up getting on a ferry, and he contemplated jumping off the ferry.
Wow.
He said his world was just so dark, and I won't spoil the documentary. He's so talented, he said, but I never think I'm good enough or good at anything. And he's written books, he's in the theatre, he's done film, he's on TV in various shows. He's an incredibly talented man, and he feels he's not good enough. And I find that quite fascinating. Us mere mortals, we think, you know, oh, right, we should have done that better, or we made a right mess of that. Someone as talented as him thinks the same thing. So I would very much like to talk to him, and I would just like to hold his hand and say, Stephen, just in case you're listening, Stephen Fry, hold your hand and just say, we appreciate everything you do. Because I think the amount of pleasure with books, TVs, documentaries is incredible. So he would be my main course.
Yeah.
For dessert, I think I'd have to have somebody quite fun.
Yeah. Bring it back up.
Yeah, I think so, because I think that'd be quite emotional with Stephen Fry. But for dessert, who would I go for? Sandy, now I'm going to make a mess of her surname. Sandy Toksvig? Yes.
Yeah, another QI person.
I mean, that programme, they have nailed the presenters, haven't they? I mean, she's done a documentary programme where she goes on to these, like, hidden houses. But that woman has got some serious brain power. What she doesn't know is great. So I'd probably dessert and coffee with her, because I think you need a bit of time.
Yeah, and she's funny.
She's brilliant.
Yeah.
She's brilliant. My starter, I'd probably have to go for Kylie Minogue.
Kylie Minogue, nice.
Yes, I'm a big Kylie Minogue fan, and I have seen Kylie in concert. I did see the Showgirl tour, and I thought she was absolutely brilliant. I love her doing the Pop Princess, the Fever, the Disco, Can't Get You Out of My Head. Genius, genius, genius.
I think with Kylie, she seems to have fun no matter what she's doing with her music, and it seems that she makes music, you know, things that make her happy and things that she enjoys, and yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Well, I have to say, Scott, before we started this podcast, you said, maybe I'm thinking about doing a podcast. You should do it. That question was absolutely brilliant, and I have to say, I'm going to steal it, but I will credit you on it.
I bestow it to you, absolutely. I'll look forward to, you know, hearing you use it, actually.
Well, yeah. I mean, you really should start a podcast. You've definitely got the voice of podcasting. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being a guest on the All About You podcast.
I'm honoured.
And please do start your own podcast.
I will. I'm in the podcast universe now, so look out.
It's probably the best thing I have ever done, and I wish I had done it years ago. And I'm so grateful for all the amazing, wonderful, talented, funny, emotional conversations I've had over nearly 3 years. It is the best thing ever, and please do it.
I will. Thank you.
And Scott, thank you for being on the All About You podcast.
Thank you.
So, if you enjoyed that conversation, which I'm sure you did, please subscribe for future episodes. It is free. Just click the button on whatever platform you're listening. And if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's get your story told.